All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
I feel like I should have done the talk about the Hawaiian shirt after the cheers. That's kind of funny. But I said it before the cheers.
Yeah, whatever. We're still recording, so.
Yeah, we're still recording. So, yeah, seriously. Please leave in just before we're talking about the Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's colorful. It's fun.
It's nice.
Feels summer.
It's very different from the topic that we have for today.
Very different.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about Miyazaki, Ghibli, and Howl's Moving Castle.
Howl's Moving Castle.
Specifically the latter.
Yeah. Now, Austin, why did we decide to talk about Howl's Moving Castle?
Well, so I think, so I want to go into that question, but I want to give a little bit of backstory on the history of Howl's Moving Castle.
There's a history.
Specifically when it came out. Okay. So there's a lot of themes with Howl's Moving Castle, and we talked about it, I think, in the previous, maybe it wasn't the...
You mean like when we talked about Santa Chihiro?
It was either that, or maybe I think there was an episode where we talked about Miyazaki films in general.
Yeah.
But one of the major themes about Howl's Moving Castle is it's an anti-war theme, or anti-war film.
Yeah.
Right? And Miyazaki has been extremely vocal of his opinions on war.
Yeah.
He's extremely, extremely vocal. He is very, very anti-war.
It's weird because he likes warplanes, but he doesn't like war.
Yeah. So this film came out at a time where there was a lot of conflict, specifically U.S.-centered conflict. So Howl's Moving Castle, if I remember, came out in 2004.
Yeah, around that time.
And at that time, that was the invasion of Iraq.
Okay.
The United States has been in full-blown war in Afghanistan for 2 to 3 years at this point. Yeah. And there was a lot of protests, not only in America, but around the world of the United States invading countries.
Yeah.
People were really against the invasion of Iraq, for example. And there was a lot of like saying that, this is just the United States being greedy. We just want oil and a lot of that. And, it kind of went back and forth. And, like the government's excuse was Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. So that was kind of America's excuse for going into Iraq.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember, so just speaking about that, because I remember when that happened. Yeah. I was like 11 years old or something like when that happened. Yeah. And I remember seeing on CNN talking about the weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. And they had like pictures of, or they had like footage of like young children being like harmed or having like burns on them or something from these weapons.
It's like there was a lot of propaganda in America at that time. And, I'm going to be honest, I was kind of a victim of propaganda to an extent, because a big reason why I joined the Marine Corps was I wanted to fight for my country.
Yeah, right.
In 2004, I was entering into high school. At that time, I was going into an aviation school. I always planned on joining the military. That's something that I made a decision really early in my life. And at that time, I wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
I eventually couldn't be a fighter pilot because I was colorblind. So I ended up joining infantry and went through all that. But 2004, I remember riding. I think we were coming home from a restaurant, right? And
where is this?
This was in Seattle.
Yeah.
And we were riding home. It's like probably 7 or 8 p.m. at night, and they were doing a radio broadcast of the invasion of Iraq in 2004. And it was such a surreal moment because you had the news reporter talking, and in the background there was American artillery shooting. So there was like all these rockets and explosions and all these sounds going off in the background, and it sounded like a war zone. And that was the first moment, I think, like that, and witnessing September 11th, seeing that on TV live, were two of the most disturbing times in my life.
Yeah, right.
Because it was one of those moments where you are witnessing destruction, right? And nothing can prepare you for that. Nothing can prepare you to see destruction on that scale. And I think Howl's Moving Castle, better than a lot of war films, is really able to display that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, like, so one thing, watching Howl's Moving Castle for the first time in a while, I was really struck by the vastness and the beauty, as well as like of the art, but also how can if this even makes sense, like the beauty of the ugliness of the destruction. Like it was kind of overwhelming when you watch it.
You know, it's kind of funny because I don't think many people would equate Miyazaki to war films.
Yeah.
But I think when I think of Howl's Moving Castle, I think of the movie All Quiet or the book. You could either or, but All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't have you read or watched it?
I haven't, but I know what it's about.
Yeah, so to give some examples, so All Quiet on the Western Front is a book about a German soldier going through the war.
World War I.
Going through World War I as a infantryman. And I'm going to spoil the book because the book's over 100 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really, you kind of get what's going to happen, but he dies in the end. Literally right the last minute of the war. He survives all the way to the last minute of the war and he dies right at the end. And the theme of the movie is how pointless war is.
Yeah.
You have this young man who at the beginning of the film, he's going to a university, right? So he's an intelligent person. Yeah. And his university professor is like full on the propaganda train for Germany. Like you all young men, you have an obligation to defend the fatherland. All of you need to go down to the office and sign up and do your duty to fight for Germany, right? And so, you know, all of his friends sign up together. They all get killed.
Yeah.
No one survives the film.
Yeah.
And it feels the same in Howl's Moving Castle because in the beginning of the film, you have Sophie who's the main character, right? And you know, there's a whole theme attached with her, and I don't want to ignore that, but I really like talking about the anti-war part of this film.
Yeah.
But during Sophie's time as a hatter, and kind of the early parts of Howl, like visiting her country, you see all these military parades.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the war has just started and everyone's like, there's this whole glorification of soldiers. Like, you know, they're marching down the streets. All these festivals are going on. Yeah. They're wearing their dress uniforms and everyone's loving it.
Yeah.
Right. And as the story progresses, it just gets grittier and grittier.
Yeah, that is really true. And, you know, the interesting thing about that is that, like, the war is a constant theme in the background. It's not really up in the front, but you see it if you look closely.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't know who they're fighting and what they're fighting for. They're just fighting.
And that was done on purpose. Yeah. It was done on purpose to really showcase the fact that war is pointless.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's
no winners in war. You know, throughout the film, you start seeing little side effects in both the countries. Because Howl is kind of like, I don't want to say he's an arms dealer, but he's working both sides on in the countries that are fighting. He's helping both sides, right? And so he's going to these countries, and the countries look different, but they're really kind of feeling the same effects of the war, right? The beginning, you see both countries, they're really hyped up. Like, yeah, let's go to war. And then slowly things start to happen. Yeah. All of a sudden, there's a supply shortage. Yeah. You know, he visits town and, you know, people are looking like they're not getting food. They're not getting like access to the regular things they have. Next after that, there's curfews and there's military police are kind of replacing like the local authorities. And then later on in the film, there's mass carpet bombings of planes flying over the cities and just blowing up the entire city.
Yeah, right.
And that's really reflective of, like, you know, what happened here in Japan, what happened in Eastern Europe. You know, war, it destroys civilization. It's not just about two groups fighting each other. It will destroy societies.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because, you know, I was born in Europe and spent a lot of time in Europe, and I go back every once in a while, and, you know, mainly in Germany.
Yeah.
And in the town where I was born, Frankfurt, right?
Yeah.
They have this downtown area with all of these nice traditional buildings.
Yeah.
And they're all, well, at least now they're like 60 years old because they were all destroyed during the war and they had to rebuild them. So it's funny because it's like they're being built off of a memory from before, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's trying to forget the war, you know?
You know, and you think of all these great great as in scale, not
big
good.
Size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these great disasters that happened in human history, you know, like the burning of the libraries of Alexandria.
Or
Alexandria.
Egypt.
Yeah. That was happened because of a lost war.
Yeah.
Right? An army came in and just torched the entire city and burned down the libraries. Right? If you want to talk more recently, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, so the Taliban has been destroying 1,000-year-old Greek architecture.
Yeah, right.
To either turn into training facilities, to train their militants, or to spite Western powers like, oh, we're going to destroy this because this represents who you are.
Yeah.
Right? There's been a lot of destruction of like old Greek architecture in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, in World War II, the same thing happened. Like a lot of German castles were turned into fortifications. Those were all destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's society, like not even just the physical part, but the cultural part gets destroyed because of that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's represented in the film in a really nice way, I think.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, it's kind of like, especially when we talk about World War II and World War I guess, to another extent, is, you know, the phrase total war, about how the whole country is geared towards war.
Yeah.
And like you said, at the beginning, it's like the war kind of happens in the background, but then everything gets kind of consumed by that. And you start to see more and more of that destruction.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's funny because, you know, when I watched it, you know, I saw that there was like an anti-war theme, but I didn't really think about it too much, but probably, you know, because you've experienced.
Yeah, I think just because of my background, I think that's just something that I connected with really, really closely.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me, like, I have a completely different background. I have like an art background. And the thing that really stuck out to me was the design of the film.
Yeah.
And how, like, the different kinds of artistic effects they used to try to make things feel differently. Like with Howl's Moving Castle, like what they actually did is they used paper cutouts to make the movement, which is why it looks kind of robotic and kind of like different from the other characters, because it's not actually drawn. There are different paper cutouts that they just move around.
Yeah.
So it creates that view. And I just, like, so I remember the first time I watched it was a couple years after watching Spirited Away for the first time. And
I just want to ask, which do you enjoy more, Spirited Away or Howl?
Spirited Away.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the first time I watched Spirited Away, I remember the story. The first time I watched Howl's Moving Castle, I forgot the story. I didn't even know what happened.
I think because I think there's a reason because that. First of all, Spirited Away, I think, is like one of the best, if not the best, Miyazaki film that's been made. I think most people would agree with that. But I also think that there's a very clear storyline with Spirited Away, whereas I don't think there's a very clear storyline with Howl's Moving Castle. There's a lot of things that are kind of going on. Hey guys, we're interrupting this awesome podcast with the two of us to tell you about a really special thing. It's called the Austin and Arthur Friends.
In the Austin and Arthur Friends, you're going to get this video with English and Japanese subtitles. 日本語と英語の字幕両方ついている動画もゲットできるんですね。You can also get a PDF script so you can read along with it. You'll get the video, the long conversation in separate videos, so it's easier for you to watch as well. You'll also get access to a 会員限定 online community and also opportunities to talk directly with me and Austin.
Yeah, you know, because we're really fun to talk to.
Well, I am. Austin's really boring.
That's a lie. It's the opposite.
He's correct. I'm the boring one.
All right. Bye, guys.
See ya. Yeah, that's the thing that really kind of got me, because so I'm, you know, I run a business, I focus on marketing, and marketing is just telling a story. Right? It's telling a story about a product, about a service, right? And so I'm a big story guy. I love thinking about how stories are composed. And actually now it's kind of the point where when I'm watching a movie, I'm analyzing the story as it's happening. I'm like, oh, the writers thought this would be good, so they put this in here. Oh, the writers missed this. Like that just happens in my brain. But I feel like Howl's Moving Castle is like not necessarily a single cohesive story, but it's a combination of loosely tied together vignettes that interact with each other.
Yeah, I agree. There's like 3 little mini stories that are going on. You follow Howl, you follow Sophie, and then you follow like the background war that's going on.
Yeah. The thing that really like got me though with that I was just like watching it again, I'm like, man, why did they miss this or something, was when I don't understand why Howl like changed his mind at the end. Like he's kind of, I'm not even quite sure I remember the story exactly, but so he's going to do one thing and Sophie tries to like, no. He realizes he loves Sophie and like decides to like forget the war and come to her. Yeah. But I don't actually, so part of writing a good story is that the viewers know why someone is doing something. Yeah. And I didn't know why he did it. It just feels like he just suddenly switched.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling too. It's my understanding. So you kind of need to like really review the story, to really understand what's going on. So basically, and I'm gonna roughly explain this story because it's complicated and I don't remember exactly the details. But basically, you have Calcifer, who's like kind of like he's kind of like the being that's like powering his castle.
Yeah, he's the furnace.
Right. And so, but he's also kind of like Hal's butler and also his best friend.
Yeah.
And he's actually a really fun character. I really like Calcifer.
Yeah.
But, so basically Calcifer is like either a meteor or a star that fell into Earth and he's like got magic powers. And
then what was it?
Howl gave away his heart, which I don't think it was his physical heart, but his like basically his soul, to form a pact with Calcifer, to I don't remember what it was, to like gain his power. I think that's what it was. And so because of that, Howl became this like super powerful wizard.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of countries were really interested in getting his support.
Yeah.
Right. And later in the film, Sophie learns about this and, if I remember, either convinces Calcifer to let Howl have his soul back or takes it from him.
Yeah.
But basically, Howl gets his soul back, and that's why he immediately changes. Because before this, he was this callous kind of like, well, I don't have really any emotions. I don't really care about this. I'm just in it for me. And then after that happens, then he gets his feelings back and he's like, okay, no, what I'm doing is wrong. I'm helping these 2 countries destroy themselves and I'm in love with this person. So I'm going to stop supporting this and I'm going to focus on what's good.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when the story changes to like the good arc and he's like a villain that's been redeemed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So out of this whole movie, who are the characters that, besides Howl, who are the characters that grab your interest the most or stick out to you the most?
Well, I think it's important to talk about Sophie because you have all of this going on. Like Howl's kind of part of this like anti-war theme, and he's got the like the villain redemption arc going for him. But Sophie also has kind of this like interesting thing about her because I kind of like and dislike her character.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna explain why I like her character. I like her character because she is what's called a vessel.
Yeah.
And so a vessel is a way for the viewer or the reader of a story to project themselves into the story. And you see the story through her perspective.
She's like the link between the viewer and the stories. We experience the story through her.
Yeah. And so a lot of her opinions on what's going on in the story are typically the opinions that the viewer's going to have. Yeah. Like, wow, I don't agree with what Hal's doing. This is ridiculous. And this happens. So I'm gonna feel this way. And so Sophie is the vessel, kind of like you like in The Great Gatsby, like Nick.
Yeah, Nick
is a really clear example of that in storytelling.
Yeah.
Here's me and my English major. I have to dissect all the characters.
Dude, it's great. It's great that way, man.
But yeah, so I like that about her. Another thing that's like a really close theme that's connected with her is maturity.
Maturity,
right?
yeah.
So you see in the film, she's actually an adult in the beginning of the film, but she's a young adult. She's like 18 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
She's just young enough to live on her own. And very early in the film, I think in like 10 or 15 minutes into the film, she gets turned into a very old woman.
Yeah, right.
Right? And
who surprisingly is still very nimble. It's just she looks old.
So that's actually one of the problems that I have with her characters. Like, she just had an extremely traumatic thing happen to her. Like, can you imagine being you and then turning into like an 80-year-old?
Yeah, yeah.
I would. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, right,
you know
right.
What I mean?
Yeah.
That is an experience that I think any person who actually experienced would break down.
Yeah, we would break down at least for like a week or something.
You would break down, and I don't even know if you could emotionally recover from that.
Yeah.
But she just kind of brushes it off, and it was just like, well, I guess I'm old now, so I'm just gonna go do old people things. It's like, really?
Yeah, right.
Like, either you have to be the most emotionally stable person in the entire world, or you know.
I mean, she does freak out a little bit, but not as much as I think.
Yeah, she gets over it super quick. She's just like, okay, well, old people clean, so I guess I'm just gonna go clean stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, what? Yeah. So I actually, that's one of the criticisms I have about her character is that. But with that being said, the experience that she has as an old person is really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Right? She adds a perspective that I don't think is usually used in media, especially in animations, is older people. Yeah. Right? Especially in Japanese animations, there's a huge, in my opinion, overemphasis on youth.
Yeah.
Like
young
children.
People. Yeah.
Children are like the center of so much storytelling here in Japan, whereas like old people are kind of regulated to the background. It's always like, Momotaro, as a boy, went off to fight these demons with these animals, and he's got like some grandparents that are on a farm somewhere.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's like there's really never any attention given to older people. And I think this is nice that although Sophie's not like an actual old person, she's representing old people in the story.
One thing that she does that I really like is she really kind of fulfills the role of the mother of the household. Like, she takes care of the house. Like, that's with the cleaning, right? So she takes care of the house, but then she also calls out Howl. She calls out when people do things wrong. Yeah. Tries to correct. And it's funny because she's a young person, but she becomes old and she kind of gets into that role.
Yeah. And I really like that that's represented, because I think that's actually a really core part of Japanese culture.
Yeah.
Where typically and traditionally speaking, things have changed a little bit now, but typically speaking, the mother in the household is actually the one in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Right? The father will go out and do, his job and whatever. Kids will go out and do something, but the mom makes all the important decisions and gives advice for when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
You see that in so much storytelling, especially drama TV shows here. You get like a drama of like two young people that are like, like a comedy TV show or whatever. And when something goes wrong, where do they go? They go back to mom and ask her what to do.
Yeah, because she's the one who holds the purse strings, actually,
Yeah,
like,
well, that, and like she's kind of thought as like the sage or the person with all the wisdom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious to hear, because one of the characters that really caught my attention is the big fat witch that makes Sophie old. Okay. And her transition. Like, I don't know, there's something about her that really just like grabbed my attention, but was that not your experience at all?
Not so much. I want to hear what you have to say about her.
So probably the reason why like she grabbed my attention was because she's really hard to understand for me, because at first, she's a bad person.
Yeah, right? I found her to be completely unreasonable. And it's like, okay, you're just evil.
Yeah, But the thing that confused me though was, so she, because of her magic or whatever, she looks young, even though she's really fat, you know?
Yeah.
And then I forget what happens, but sure, her spell, her magic goes away and she becomes this really old lady.
Yeah.
And she starts looking really nice.
Yeah.
Like she seems like a very kind old lady. And then she's like, I want to destroy Calcifer. I want to keep Calcifer. No. She wants Howl's heart. She loves Howl's heart. So she's willing to destroy the house to grab Howl's heart. And it's almost like she's a little child again.
I'll tell you what she reminded me of is Ursula from
Are you just saying that because she's fat, dude?
No, but like Ursula's kind of like the older like hag character that's really greedy and self-centered and just out for power.
Yeah.
And the only reason why she's attracted, she doesn't care about Howl at all.
Yeah.
But she knows he's powerful.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why she wants his heart.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah. And so it's funny because, you know, normally in a traditional storyline, it's like, oh, I've lost all my powers and just an old lady. I'll be nice for him now. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like in Spirited Away.
Yeah.
When like Yubaba's, they go see Zany Baba, Yubaba's sister, and Zany Baba's
like
so
super nice.
She's super nice.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, you know, she's gonna be super nice now. She's like, no, I'm gonna steal Howl's heart and I'm gonna destroy this castle. It's like, man, I don't know how I feel about this lady.
Yeah.
Like, cause like she's just kind of in the background. And she's really like she's like Nimotsu. She's just like a burden on everyone.
Yeah, and I think a big reason why her character kind of is portrayed the way, and I think the reason why she was portrayed that way is because Miyazaki wanted to represent that people who are greedy are weak.
Yeah.
And they might look powerful, like in her, for her character, she looks powerful. She's this young, sexy, rich lady. And
I wouldn't say sexy.
Well, but that's the impression that they're supposed to be giving off, right? And she's extremely powerful, but at the end of the day, she's greedy.
Yeah.
And as a greedy person, that is a huge weakness.
Yeah.
And it's represented that like when she loses her power, she's helpless.
Yeah.
She can't do anything.
Yeah.
She like without Sophie, I don't know, maybe she'd even die.
Yeah.
Like she is so useless.
Yeah.
And that's what they're really showing is like, if you follow these dark things, if you're a greedy person, if you're only out for power, well, when you lose that power, you are useless. You are nothing.
Yeah. So the reason why we watched Howl's Moving Castle is because you said it's your favorite Ghibli film, and I think
it's not my favorite, but it's the one I like to talk about.
The one you like to talk about most.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite one?
Oh, it's Spirited Away.
Spirited Away. Okay.
Yeah.
So your second favorite one, or like the one you like to talk about, is Howl's.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you already kind of talked about it a little bit, but to just kind of like put a pin in it, kind of like round out this conversation.
Yeah.
What is it about Howl's Moving Castle that you like so much?
Mostly the anti-war themes. Yeah. Because I mean, just, you know, having been in the military, but also having grown up in America, America's a little known fact about America is I think the country's been around for, I want to say about 250 years, somewhere around there, maybe a little bit more. But only, I think it's gone up a little bit because we haven't been in conflict since 2019, 2016.
Officially.
But out of like 30 to 35 years of America's history, we've been at war with somebody.
Yeah. So basically, America as a country has been around for 250 years.
Yeah.
And for 30 of those years, we have not been at war. So we've been at war for like 200 years.
Yeah. So vaguely, like it's not exact, but about that amount of time. America was created during war. We fought. Basically, all of the allies that America has nowadays, we've been at war with. We've been at war with Japan, Britain, Germany. All three of those countries are our closest allies. Korea, Vietnam's actually really close with America also.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a lot of the countries that America goes to war with, we end up like really close allies. Not all the time, but Philippines, another example.
Yeah.
And so a lot of American culture is like connected with war. So that's something that I resonate a lot with when you see something that's anti-war.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, we should watch one of the more recent Ghibli movies that are more touched on, more like The Wind Also Rises or or Grave of the Fireflies. I want to see that one too.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. So for you guys watching, so we'll also ask our Austin Arthur friends community. I think we'll put more emphasis on that. But if you guys have a Ghibli movie you want us to watch and talk about, please let us know in the comments.
Please do. And also, please let us know what you think about this film.
Oh, yeah.
Because last time when we talked about Spirited Away, we actually got some really interesting comments, and we read all the comments.
Yeah, we do.
And there was some really interesting perspectives that were kind of talking about stuff that I kind of wish that like we could have read before we made the film or made our episode. Because it's like, man, that's cool.
If you have a movie that you want us to watch, please tell us why you want us to watch it. Maybe we can talk about that theme when we actually talk. But anyways, man, it's been good talking to you. I'm really glad we talked about Howls because I appreciate this film a lot more now after talking with you about it.
Yeah. I like there's so many things, like Miyazaki films are just an onion, right?
Yeah.
And
so many layers.
There's so many layers to them, but also like one of the things that's so just insane about his films is your experience with the films drastically changes based off of your life experience.
Yeah, right.
And it's so crazy to talk about because, you know, like just talking with you about things like, you know, with our Spirited Away video, it's like, oh, wait, what? That's what you understood from this movie? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, man. All right, well, this is, I guess sorry, man, this sake is really hitting me now. So I'm kind of like, as I'm talking to you, I'm like, so when Austin gets drunk, he gets loud and rambunctious. When I get drunk, I'm just like, that's me. And then I fall asleep.
Yeah.
But anyways, man, it was good talking to you. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, man.